Hi YouTube, welcome back, and many thanks to all those of you who left lovely, kind, supportive messages and good wishes on my last video, more particularly my one before last, when I showed you some of my favourites and talked about having been away for a little while. I will say I noticed that I had, proportionate to the number of people who watched, the most thumbs up for that video, the most likes of, I think, probably any of my videos. I wasn't quite sure whether I ought to take that as it's a good idea not to make so many and then you're more grateful when you see one. I'm only joking. I think it was people being, as I say, very kind and supportive and hitting the like thumbs up button, but I was very pleased and grateful to see that. So I'm in fact going to try and bombard you with quite a few videos in the next few days, the next week or so. Let's see how that goes, but I have got quite a lot of products to show you after the kind of go slow. So beginning today with a MAC collaboration with Padma Lakshmi. I'm never quite sure how to pronounce the surname. I don't really know very much about this woman, and when I look her up, she seems to have done pretty much a little bit of everything, and I only knew her as a spouse of Salman Rushdie, the author, which sounds incredibly sexist and not the sort of thing, as a feminist, I like to say, just identifying a woman by her family or who she's married to, but she is one of these people who seems to be very good at doing a little bit of everything. Her Wikipedia tells me she's an author, she's certainly a model and an actress, which I knew she was a model. She's written cookery books, she's promoted jewellery, and she's had this collaboration with MAC. I like it a lot, and I haven't been keen on a lot of their smaller collaborations of recent years. First of all, let's appreciate I love this beautiful, very bling packaging. It would be easy for this to look really cheap and nasty, and more importantly to feel cheap and nasty, but it doesn't. It's definitely got a really exotic Indian feel to it in the engraving and the light gold, but it's a good heavy weight, and the Padma logo on the front is very prettily and discreetly done. So I really like the packaging of the two eye palettes, and they've kind of carried that over. I'm slightly less keen on the lipstick, which is kind of smooth case rather than engraved and a darker gold, but they've still got the kind of Indian material engraving logo going on with it. And even the eye pencil, the detail is very nice on the caps, showing that engraving again, which I think is really pretty. And the packaging, which I kept for a few of them, has the gold again, but with the bright kind of colours, even inside the boxes. So whoever did the design for this line, good job, I thought. Really, really pretty. My two favourite items from the collection, which also included a number of lipsticks and lip glosses for sure. There may have been other items, but I knew I was very interested in the two quads. I do like these limited edition MAC quads. The quality of MAC eyeshadows can be variable. Sometimes they can be a little dry, but for the price point, I think they're pretty good. They're usually decently but not overly pigmented, and it's quite nice to have a quad sometimes as opposed to a big palette or a single. Just very useful for lazy people like me doing a complete eye from one palette. So the first one that I got is Desert Dusk, and this when I saw it and ordered it, I thought it was going to be my least favourite because of that blue, and I'm not a great blue wearer. But as I showed you in my my kind of favourites video, you can see I've used this quite a bit. There are some very useful colours there for this time of year, particularly this nice peachy pink, which just evens out your eye, brightens without looking too kind of sickly. Then there's a decent kind of mid-toned gold, again, nice useful colour. A brown, which is very pigmented, you can see there, without fallout. I have to shear that out quite a bit. Haven't used that as much, but definitely very wearable. And even the blue, it is very pigmented if you choose to make it like that. Bit of fallout I find with it, but I actually like to kind of pat it at the edges of the eye, blending in with one or both of these two colours, and it just kind of gives a bit of brightness without too much bright blueness. You can definitely build it up. So I have used that quad quite a lot, and I really like it. The other one that I thought I was going to like is this one that I've got at the back. Let's tell you what that's called. This is called 70s Sunset, and this was much harder for me to get hold of, so it took me a while to find it. Again, you've got a slightly browner, it looks much more pink in the palette than it does in real life. Quite awkward showing you the swatch there, but it's a very nice browny nude flesh tone almost. I found that quite useful. And then a darker rose. You can see how well pigmented these are. They go on really well. So a very purpley plum. I think this quad is actually going to transition into later seasons like autumn really well. Then this purple. Let's show you that. Bit more fallout on that one. Haven't actually worn that one, I don't think. Oh, it looks as if I have actually, but can't remember wearing it. And then this really pretty green, which I love. Really struggling here with my iPad. And there you go. You can see it's a very shimmery green. I actually quite like that all over the lid. It's a kind of silvery, shimmery green. So I'm really enjoying that selection of colours. So it's quite an interesting, it's not colours that you'd necessarily put together straight away. Slightly exotic, which I think fits in with the theme of that particular collection. There were about 5 lipsticks. I don't think there were many nudes, maybe one nude. They were mostly reds and pinks. And I went for, don't know if you can see that, Mitai Pink. So good Indian name there. And here it is. A nice, more cool toned pink than warm, but fairly in the middle, blue toned, which I tend to like. Again, you can see very pigmented. I have to pat that on quite carefully, but it's a nice, relatively forgiving formula for a bright colour. I'm trying to look what the finish is. It's a matte. So yeah, very forgiving formula for a matte. I don't tend to like the MAC mattes. I think they can be a bit drying, but I found that one lasted reasonably well and kind of wore off fairly evenly, so I was left with a stain rather than kind of patchy lips. If I'm honest, the product that I was most disappointed with is this double-ended kohl pencil. They did this in, I'm going to say one other shade. There may have been a black and some other colour, but there was definitely a green and purpley colour, which I thought about getting. But I'm always tempted by these light or white kohl pencils that people say you should put in the inner rim of your eye and they will brighten up. This is really a silver, and you can see it looks very pretty there. But when I apply it to the tear line, really, I suppose, it just looks slightly odd and too bright. So I haven't worked out how to use that. And then there's, again, what looks, can't get the lid off, a very pretty gold. can see it there. This one I find is almost too light. It doesn't really show up on my waterline. And if I kind of trace it in the top line, again, it isn't pigmented enough to show up really on my lash line. So I haven't really worked out how to use these, I have to say. I will say they're very soft, they go on easily. They don't last particularly well, they wear off, but I find that's often a payoff unless you've got a very true black coal. The payoff between a smoother formula that goes on without dragging the eye is that tends to, on me, weep and rub away, or at least kind of transfer out, or to get one that stays in a nice even line, then they tend to be a lot more hard and draggy on the eye. So the pencils weren't a huge success for me, but I did love those two palettes, and I do love the packaging. So that little collection was a hit for me. I'm only sorry it didn't get kind of wider distribution, certainly in the UK. I don't know if it did a bit better in the United States. So that's the Padma collection. Until next time, bye for now.